Okay, so am I audible to all you guys?
Yes, sir.
Fine. So everyone, please write your registration number and name in caps in the chat box. Okay, so I think let us have a brief revision of what we had studied in the previous class. If you are able to see this, then in the previous class, we had started our discussion on the first type of resistance, that is the train resistance, which included resistance independent of speed, resistance dependent on speed, and then atmospheric resistance and resistance due to track profile. These are the things that we had discussed in the previous class. Again, those have certain factors which are influential, which contributes in the resistances. So the total train resistance, as we had discussed, would be R capital T1, which is equal to 0.0016 times of W plus 0.00008 times of W into V plus 0.000006 times of WV square. So this was the first resistance and we had named it as equation 1. Then we discussed about resistance due to track profile, that is R capital T2, which depends upon the resistance due to gradient and resistance due to curve, right? So resistance due to gradient Rg is the product of W and small g, where this g should not be mistaken with the acceleration due to gravity. Okay, it is weight multiplied by the gradient or slope that we have provided. Okay, that is what is for resistance due to gradient. Similarly, resistance due to curve, we had these equations. Okay, so the general equation here is RC mean, that is resistance due to curve. The mean value of that is F into capital G divided by R, where F is the force of sliding friction, G is the gauge, and R is the radius what you have provided in the curved section. Now, if you try to substitute the value of G, then this G value when substituted for broad gauge, it would be 1.676 meters, and for meter gauge it would be it would be 1, and for narrow gauge it would be zero point 0.6. Okay, so that's the value. When you substitute into it, you get the resistance due to curve for these three different gauges that we use in Indian Railways. So RC for broad gauge, the equation for that would be 0.0004 times of W into D. Similarly, for meter gauge, RC would be equal to 0.0003 times of W into D. Similarly, for narrow gauge, it would be 0.0002 times of W into D. Right. Now, this resistance would be in terms of kg per tons. Now let me again make it clear to you that the value of D here is the degree of curve. So degree of curve would be usually given in the problem. In case if you don't have it, then you need to convert it accordingly and then use it. Okay, so these are the equations that you need to remember. So as and how I keep moving ahead, you are required to make a note of all these equations, because at the end we'll be solving problems based on these equations. Okay, so you will not be getting separate question only on these equations individually. It would be a combined problem which will have all the equations that we have studied till now, right, and the ones that we are going to study ahead. So this was about resistance due to curve and gradient, the second one. Okay, next we need to move on towards the next resistance, which is called as the resistance due to starting and acceleration. So resistance due to starting and acceleration, I think I have told you that it is a part of the main resistances that we are about to study. So we studied about train resistance and then resistance due to track profile, which includes gradient and curve. Now we shall be discussing about resistance due to starting and acceleration. So this particular resistance, which is dependent upon starting and acceleration of the train that is on the railway track, okay, is being divided into two parts. One is resistance at the starting process, and the other one is during the acceleration process. So resistance due to starting, again, you have, if you remember that the train has two components. One is the propelling unit, and the other one is the trailing unit. So for locomotive, the resistance would be different, and for the wagons, it would be different, right? So the equation for the resistance due to starting, that is RS, okay. So for locomotive, it is denoted as RS1. So RS1 is equal to 0.15 times of W1, where W1 is the weight of the locomotive in tons. All right. Then you have the weight of the vehicle or the wagons, right? So that is RS2. RS2 is equal to 0.005 times of W2. So this is equation number 4 and equation number 5. So resistance due to starting for the whole train would be the sum of RS1 and RS2. So that is complete RS. So the entire RS, that is resistance due to starting, would be equal to 0.15 times of W1 plus 0.005 times of W2, right? So I have just summed up these two equations. Now this equation is denoted as 6. So this is due to starting process. Now on the contrary, when the vehicle is about to start, these are the resistances that the vehicle need to overcome. Once it has started and once the acceleration begins and when the vehicle is moving, right, you need to consider the resistance due to acceleration. You have two such equations here. Either of these two can be used to solve the problem. So one is Ra, that is resistance due to acceleration, which is equal to 0.028 times of W multiplied by V2 minus V1 divided by T, where V2 is the speed at the end of the acceleration, again in kmph, and V1 is the speed of the vehicle at the beginning of the acceleration, again in kmph. T would be in terms of seconds. So that is the time taken for the vehicle to travel from speed 1 to speed 2. Okay. So at the beginning of the acceleration till the end of the acceleration, or when the acceleration has already been constant, that is the time that you need to consider. Okay. So Ra is equal to this. This is the generic equation. Okay. Then on the other hand, in case if directly the acceleration is given to you in terms of kilometers per hour per second, then the weight and acceleration would be considered, and it would be helpful for us to solve the problem. So either you can use this equation or the second equation, right? It depends on what data is being given to you in the problem. So that's about the resistance due to acceleration, right? So sum of Rs and Ra would give you Rsa, right? That's the resistance due to starting and acceleration. So that's the second last component, or second last resistance. Now coming to the last resistance that we have is because of the wind that is being blowing on the vehicle when the vehicle is moving. Imagine the vehicle is moving at certain speed, okay, and the direction of movement is like this, like the way it has been shown in the arrow. So wind will be blowing not just in one direction, isn't it? So it can blow from the top or from the front of the vehicle, or it might be blown from the sides of the vehicle as well. So you are not definite enough in which direction the vehicle will be influenced by the wind. So to generalize, the effect actually depends upon the angle at which the wind is blowing, right? So imagine the vehicle is moving in this direction as I have shown in this figure. Then if the direction of the wind is inclined at an angle of theta, then it will have a force acting in this direction. You need to resolve this force in terms of vertical component and horizontal component. I think you have already studied about resolution of forces in engineering mechanics. The same principle can be adopted here. So the horizontal component here is V cos theta and the vertical component here is V sin theta, right? So this particular force will be assumed to be acting in the horizontal plane, not along the vertical plane. So this velocity, that is V, will be resolved like this, and you are trying to derive an equation. So V cos theta, when you consider these two, okay, V cos theta is more dominant in introducing resisting forces when compared to that of V sin theta, which acts along the side. So the one that acts against the direction of movement need to be given more importance. So V cos theta is responsible to oppose the train movement, and it has been found that the maximum resistance occurs when the wind is blowing or the velocity of the wind V is acting at an angle of 60 degree, right? So considering this particular case, the resistance due to wind is equal to 0.000017 times of AV square, where A is the area of the train that is exposed to the wind and V is the velocity of the train, okay, or the speed at which the train is moving. So this is equation number 8. Okay, so summing up all these equations together, you will be getting the complete tractive resistance. So tractive resistance, if it is denoted by R capital T, that would be equal to R capital T1 plus R capital T2 plus R SA plus RW, right? So R capital T1 is the resistance due to train, and R capital T2 is resistance due to the track profile, plus RSA is resistance due to starting and acceleration, plus RW is the resistance due to wind. So when you sum up all these together, you will be getting the total resistance the train needs to overcome when it is moving on a railway track. So that is equation number 9. So when a problem is being asked, you need to use all these equations, solve the problem, and give the total resistance that the train need to overcome. So you will understand this better when we start solving the problems based on these concepts. Okay. Next, we shall discuss about the next phenomena, which is called as howling capacity of locomotive. Now this howling capacity, you need to understand what this actually means. The meaning of howling capacity should be known to you. So howling capacity is the capacity of the vehicle that it can howl to move the train from one place to the other place. So howl is nothing but the capability of the train to carry certain load on it, okay, including its self weight. Other than that, what weight it can carry, okay, all put together is what we call as howling capacity. Okay, so generally howling capacity is defined as the product of coefficient of friction and the weight on the driving wheels. So if you multiply the coefficient of friction that is acting between the wheels and the metallic rails, okay, that coefficient of friction when multiplied with the weight of the with the weight acting on the driving wheels or the propelling wheels, you will be getting the howling capacity. Now this howling capacity has different equations. You will understand about how this howling capacity can be obtained in different ways, as and how the data has been given to you in the problem. When we start solving the problem, you will understand it much better. Okay, now this coefficient of friction actually depends on two parameters. One is the condition of the rail surface, if it is rough or smooth, or it has defects or wear on it, right? It depends upon the condition of the rail surface, and it also depends upon the speed of the locomotive. Greater the speed, lesser will be the friction. Okay, less the speed, more will be the friction. That's how it relates. So the coefficient of friction increases with the decrease in speed, and it decreases with the increase in speed. That is what is being shown here, right? So normally at a high speed, when the vehicle is moving at a high speed, you will be assuming the coefficient of friction as 0.1, and at a low speed the coefficient of friction is 0.3. So the hauling capacity, it basically indicates the power of the vehicle, okay, or the locomotive. So normally we have seen plenty of vehicles on the roadways also. We own vehicles, we own four-wheeler, two-wheeler, etc., etc. You might have heard about, they talk something in terms of PS or horsepower. Okay, normally the two-wheelers what we have will be having 21 horsepower or 28 horsepower or even 30 horsepower, depends on the vehicle, right? And cars will be having around 85 horsepower or 110 horsepower, etc., etc. So this horsepower is nothing but the hauling capacity that the vehicle can accommodate when it is about to move. Okay, so the hauling capacity is now equal to mu into W into N. Okay, so this mu is the coefficient of friction, and this W what we have here, small w, is the weight on the driving axle, or weight that is acting on the driving axle, and N, small n, is the number of pairs of driving wheels in the system, right? If you try to accommodate these two together, it would be the load on the driving wheel. So hauling capacity is equal to mu, that is coefficient of friction, multiplied by weight on the driving wheel, or load on the driving wheel. This is a very important equation that you need to remember, this equation along with the coefficient of frictions. Okay, so this was about hauling capacity of locomotive, right? Now let us discuss about the next concept here, which is on tractive effort. So tractive effort is basically considered to be equal to or little more than the hauling capacity. So if you have a hauling capacity of say 100 kilos, for you to be able to move, your tractive effort required will be more than 100 kilos. Only then you will be able to move, isn't it? So the tractive effort should be either equal to the hauling capacity, or it should be little more than the hauling capacity. So if the engine that we have in the locomotive, it applies more